Season 4, Episode 13, Decoded Podcast.
You want to go?
No,
you got me on fire too.
Go.
No, I don't think I can.
You can do it. To be honest, you need to.
Oh, our fossil list. Full of what was it? It's I'm not there yet to be able to say it in open air on our podcast.
Okay, that's fair.
I think it's the full of so that's the FOS statements and idioms list. So it's the full of statements and idioms list. So you can be honest, but I'm going to tell you, you're on the list. You're on that list. You just got me lit up about the obligation of friendship. You got me thinking a lot about that. And it just, there's a previous professional relationship that I was a part of where the individual I overheard an individual speaking to somebody else, but they were referring to me. And as they were sort of, I don't know, maybe introducing me, I don't know how it worked. I don't know the exact, I think there was another person in the room with them, and they sort of said, and this is my friend Chris. And then they kind of followed up and said, wait, are we friends? Are we friends? And I liked that bit of analysis because there had never actually been any discussion between the individual and I about whether or not we were friends, though we were sort of coexisting in a space where I guess the assumption was friends was part of the deal. And that's what you got me thinking about as far as the lead up in our on-ramp is the terms of engagement, I guess, the invisible terms of engagement in professional relationships. And is there space in those professional relationships to separate friendship and deep collegiality? So that's all I got, dude. I don't have anything better than that right now. But that's what you've lit up in me for right now.
And I'm not sure which direction to take that with. Like, I'm not sure what to do with that because, is it something I want to dig deep into right now? I don't know.
No.
I think
I can remember that. So if I go back into my experience, the individual, we ended up having a lot of conversations about what sort of, what the relationship was, like our purpose in the rooms that we worked in, like who are we? Why are we? What is our professional obligation to each other? So we spent time unpacking it, but it kind of took that question to be asked. Is that, and it was, I guess I'm a good candidate for this to sort of unwind and unpack some stuff that sometimes people just don't talk about. But that question of, are we friends?
Okay, well, you've lit something up in me now. So this is where I want to take this. And it's perfect in terms of, do I have friends at work? The answer is yes. But I have a lot more people at work that I work with that were friendly, but I wouldn't call them my friends. And I actually had a really cool moment this week where I realized that, and it was really good for me. So what happened was, somebody wasn't at work, and my understanding was that they weren't feeling well, but that they weren't like sick, but they were like, during these COVID times, unsure of whether they should be at work. So they weren't at work. And, the first day, it's like, whatever. I mean, every day there's somebody missing from work. I mean, if you go into the office, half an hour to 45 minutes before the school day starts, you will probably see my administrators and the administrative assistants on the phone trying to find people to come in to fill these holes in the school. So anyway, the first day, this person's missing, no biggie. The second day this person's missing, I had a moment of, I felt like I want to email this person, say, hey, are you okay? But I stopped and thought about it. I thought, what is my relationship with this person? Is it strictly a professional relationship?
Hmm.
Or is there friendship there? And I erred on the side of caution and did not message this person because I'm like, I just it's it's muddy. The water's muddy, so I don't know. So I'm just gonna stay on my side of the puddle. And then later on in the day, someone mentioned something about this person, and I said to them, "Oh, I was thinking about sending them an email just to see if they were okay, but I decided against it." And then they said, "Oh, I did. I emailed this person, and they're okay. They're being precautious. They're being overcautious because of the situation." I'm like, awesome. Then I guess I'll just see them the next time they're in the building, kind of thing. Um, but it's interesting. I feel like, especially this year, I don't have a lot of room in me for anything more than what people are getting right now. So if we're friends already, then we're friends and that's good. But if we're not friends and you want to be my friend, I don't think that I have any space like for any of that right now. So professionally, I'm there and I'm working and I'm communicating, collaborating as much as I can, depending on who needs what or what I need. But the friendship thing is interesting, and so what this year's also done is it has solidified um, who my friends in the building are and who I can talk to, I guess, personally, and who I can talk to about stuff that's not just work. Because I find that, so before this school year, I would say 95% of my lunch hours were spent working because I have things to do. I got to prepare, I got to think forward. Um, I have to get things done so that I'm not dealing with them at home. And this year's been different. This year, my lunch hours are for me. Mostly, my lunch hours are. I will purposely, when I have the time, when something else isn't planned or whatever, I will sit down with some people and I will chat. And usually, there's a little bit of work chat, but there's more of just life chat, right? It's like family chat, extracurricular chat, just talking about things that kind of fuel me to keep going with my day. Because that's what I found. Like I get to half the day and I'm like, okay, I need to be refueled for the second half because I'm already out of whatever it is I need to get through. And the cool thing is that I don't think it's fair for me to use the word friends. I've gotten to know some people a little bit better that I didn't know before, which is cool. Are we friends? No, we're not friends, but we're friendlier to each other and we're a little bit more understanding of each other. Whereas last year, I would have never spent any time with some of these people, but this year I am, and it's been good. It's been good. Um, that word friendship has always been a loaded word to me, and it's loaded because there have been times in my life where I thought people were my friends and then discovered they weren't, and it hurt because I thought we were friends. Um, there's a story I want to tell about this guy. So I can't say too much because if I do, then it will reveal who this person is. And I don't want that. That's not the purpose here. The purpose here is to provide a narrative of things that happen that cause you on a different trajectory in your life. So I'm at a school and this guy comes to work at the school. And I thought we were friends because we had been on committees together and this individual lived relatively close to my house. And sometimes I would see this individual at the arena or I would see them in the neighborhood. And I thought we were friends because we'd see each other like, hey, how are you doing? And we'd talk about our kids and whatnot because our kids were around the same age. And then this person comes to the same school that I'm already at. And I start to see things. I start to see um, I was like giving this person my time, but they weren't reciprocating. And normally that's not an issue with friends, because that's friends. Like sometimes friends have time for you, sometimes they don't. And it's one of those things where you just go with the flow with your friends. So I just thought that was what was happening here. And then we had a moment where this person, this person said, this person couldn't commit to something that I thought was an easy thing to commit to. And the person said that they couldn't commit. And I said, not a problem. But then I saw this person making the same commitment to other people in the building. And then I started to wonder, what's going on here? Like, how come that commitment can't be made to me, but everything, all the other factors were the same except for one thing, who I was as a person compared to who these other people were as people. There was no other varying factor. And I realized that this person did not consider me a friend. And it hurt. Like, I wish I could tell you that I didn't care, but I did care. And it hurts when it comes up, because people will bring this person up thinking that we're friends, but I know that we're not friends. And I know it sounds dramatic as I explain it. It's not. I wish I could give more details, but I can't. But just to say that this person was treating other people a certain way, but I wasn't being treated the same way. But I thought that I had earned that type of treatment from that person. Anyway, long story short, it's helped me. It's informed me moving forward, right? It's made it very clear to me that there are certain symbols of friendship. And at some point, you need to keep building those symbols, building that capacity. Like, for example, with you and I, we met on the internet, on Twitter, right? Colleagues, both teachers, tweeting about the same thing. Then we met live, face to face, at a really cool, what would you even call it, educational experience?
Yeah. It's funny because I have tried to.
I don't even know what to call that, what we did there. We were part of
I would say it was a conference.
Exchange. Okay,
Yeah,
conference.
Yeah, mini conference. I don't know. Conversation. I don't know.
Well, we talked, and then we just started talking, and slowly symbols of friendship started to build in, right? Like, hey, do you have a minute? Let me give you a call. Or, oh, let me give you a call. Well, that means that you have to have my phone number and I have to have your phone number. So you know where I stand on that. That's huge. So we started moving in that direction. And then it was like, the last time I saw you face to face, I visited your house. I got to meet your family. So in my mind, I was like, well, unless this guy's a real doofus, not everybody he meets hangs out in his backyard with his family, kind of thing. So you and I have had some natural symbols along the way, right? We've had just these experiences that keep happening that you would say are that define friendship in a way. So now I'm very careful with these things. Like at work, I probably have less than 5 friends at work, and I'm not. That's okay. It's very good for me though, because then I know, like, if you say something to me in the hallway and I don't consider you a friend, then it's not gonna do anything to me, because it's a professional relationship. So yeah, say what you want and I'll say what I want. We're gonna all move on. But if you're my friend and there's an issue, I've done something to hurt you, then let's talk. I want to talk about it, because maybe I did try to hurt you or maybe I didn't, but let's try to talk about it because we're friends. Anyway, lately things have been a little bit weird at school, because there's a few guys and we get together for lunch. And we don't invite everybody to sit with us for lunch. But as I experienced yesterday, the bell rang, so I was getting ready to go outside and get the kids. And when I come to the door where there's a bunch of teachers gathered to go outside, several teachers are talking about lunch. And there was three of them. They're like, okay, are we going to get together for lunch today? And they're like, yeah. And then one of them says, oh, by the way, I invited a fourth person. I hope that's okay. And they're like, okay. And I purposely stood in their space looking at them, waiting to be invited for lunch. Because isn't that what everybody does? Walking around inviting everybody to sit with them for lunch? Because sometimes I get the feeling that because I only hang out with certain people at lunch, that I'm doing something wrong. Well, guess what? They didn't invite me to come have lunch with them. So then I had a big smile on my face thinking, well, if they don't have to invite me to have lunch with them and I'm standing right there as they're talking about lunch, then I don't need to invite anybody to have lunch with me either, except the people that I have lunch with. Now, this can be a very slippery slope. There are other factors involved. But if we're just talking me and a couple of the teachers having lunch together, it seems to me that a lot of people have made a bit of a big deal about it. People make comments when me and two other guys have lunch together. They make comments. I don't make any comments when certain groups of the ladies have lunch together. And my point was proven when I was literally standing in the middle of this conversation and nobody said, hey, Roland, do you want to have lunch with us today? Now, I'm not going to turn it into a big deal, gender this and gender that. They didn't want to invite me to have lunch with them. That is okay. But if it's okay for them, then it's okay for me. And I made sure to tell the other two guys that I normally have lunch with, I said, guess what I saw this morning? So next time somebody makes a comment about us getting together for lunch, maybe then we inform and we educate that sometimes. Now here's the other thing. If you want to have lunch with me and the other two guys, you can ask, hey, can I sit down and eat lunch with you guys? I have a hard time believing we're going to say no, because we're not trying to cause problems. And maybe I could have said to the ladies, can I have lunch with you? I could have done that, but I wanted to see if I was going to be invited, because sometimes people expect an invitation. Well, I stood there. I was literally in the middle of them talking. I was not asked to join them for lunch. Okay. So I made sure to tell my guy friends, hey, I wasn't invited for lunch today. And as I was telling them this, we looked out the window and we saw that group coming back from where they went to get their food. And now we're going inside to gather and eat. There are people in the building who are my friends. I want to spend time with my friends on my time so I can re-energize to move forward. There are some peripheral people as well that do sit with us sometimes. And I've come to know these people, and they're great people. And I appreciate the conversation and the joking and just the normal time with others. I'm appreciative of that. It works, right? It can get complicated, but it doesn't have to be complicated. I've just come to realize that I'm going to do what I need to do for me. And I'm thankful for that, because I've not always been like that, but I'm very thankful. In fact, I will share one more story with you that cements for me that I need to do what's right for me. So many years ago, when I first started my career, I was at a school, and I was, for a little bit, I was the only male. There was another male, but he was much older, and he made it quite clear he was not interested in hanging out with the young people and the shenanigans or whatever. But there was a whole crew of amazing teachers where I learned how to teach. And they were women, predominantly my age. So like, mid to late 20s, new to the career, just starting their career. And I considered them friends. And every now and again, my wife and I, when we'd be talking, I'd say to my wife, yeah, the girls, they're all going to do this today or whatever. And one day my wife said to me, do you want to hang out with them? Like, it's like Thursday night and they're going to do whatever. Like, do you want to hang out with them? And I said, well, I think we're friends, so it'd be fun if I was invited to go and do some of these things with them. Like whatever, like I'll give you an example, like going to one of those painting sessions where you go with your friends and there's an instructor and you create something by the end of your hour and a half or whatever, but you're hanging out with your buddies. And I
Mhm.
remember saying to my wife, yeah, like if if they invited me, I'd probably go because, I'm new here and I'm trying to make friends, and my wife's met them and they all get along and know each other. So even my wife could come and it'd be fun, right? So one day when I was on the phone with one of them, I think my wife answered the phone, and my wife was talking to this person who my wife knows and we all get along. So my wife's just chatting with her before I get on the phone. And my wife said something like, Roland, he'd love to be invited to some of the things that you girls do. And the response was a laugh. Like it was like, ah, ha, 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 and my wife said, no, really, like if you think I'd be bothered by it or whatever, I wouldn't go. You can invite him if you want. And my friend laughed like, oh, okay, well, why would we invite Roland? Right? Like, yeah, he's our friend, but why would we invite Roland to like a ladies' night out? And again, I was hurt. It seems like the episode of this podcast is about me being hurt, but again, it informed me. It informed me. It drew that line in the ground for me. And then after that day, I just come to the understanding that at work or at a work function or maybe a telephone call here and there, then yeah, I was a friend. But there were some realms of that friend that didn't exist for me, and I didn't understand that, but something had to happen for me to understand, and I understood. So now for me moving forward is I just do what I need to do. So if I need something from you, I will say, hey, can you help me with this, or can I be part of this? And sometimes I won't ask because I don't want to be. And sometimes I'll be invited and I'll politely say no, or I'll say yes. So friendship has always been murky waters for me. And I think it's because I expect a lot from someone who calls themselves my friend. I expect a lot. Um, and so because of that, I don't have very many friends because of the way I define the term.
I've gotten better. I think I had when I was a kid, I had I had people that I would have identified as friends. Was I a contributor? Was I was I doing the things that demonstrated friendship in a way that I was craving? So I think when I was a kid, one of the things I kind of expected, and I don't know if it was I expected it because of it was me or I learned to kind of expect. I mean, really, that could be one and the same. But basically, the way that I looked at my circle of friends was that my house was the launching point. So it tended to be that stuff kind of centered around my house whenever we were trying to figure out, what we were going to do, where we're going to hang out. And that started to build sort of like an expectation that my friendship experience was centered around me. So I didn't really have a sense of how big my ego was getting. But as I got older and people weren't just around me as constantly and consistently as they used to be, because circles get bigger and everybody, I think the natural progression of life is you sort of meet more people, and some of your some of your connections, like, you have to be more intentional in hanging on to those connections. They don't just happen because you live on the same block anymore. They don't just happen because your parents are friends. At some point, it's like that relationship is handed to you and you have to start devoting yourself to building it or not building it. And I was taught that relationships were what I sort of taught myself, what I sort of observed, is that relationships were handed to me, and that I never really worked all that hard to build connection because they were always just there. I always had friends around. Now, I don't know if I'm just identifying, what it means to be a teenager, but I think on one hand, when I look back, I can see groups of my friends that did a lot of work to actually honor their friendships. They didn't just go with the flow. And I really was always a go with the flow kind of guy with my friendships. I didn't really do the work. So as an adult, well, okay, so if I go that midsection first before I hit adult, so I go to university and I go and I work in hospitality and I work in restaurants, that sort of go with the flowness really kind of helped me because especially being a chef working in kitchens, to be able to kind of work with different people and not really have to be able to just expect that you're going to find ways to work with each other and kind of respect each other without really having to go and hang out with each other. You're going to be back tight, having a strong experience of getting the restaurant up and running, which is a highly charged experience when you're working in the kitchen, out on the floor too, if you're a server. I think even still, I was kind of not really paying attention much to nurturing and building friendships. I became a manager and then, a managing chef. So I had staff and positive connections there. So probably that was filling part of that space where I was being social, but I wasn't learning how to socialize and how to extend. There was a lot of conversation within our management team that, to be cautious because there's a line there and you are a manager, and to get too deep with a staff member, it was almost like it was suggesting somehow that it was almost, I felt like I was being called out because on one hand, I'm like, I can manage my relationships. Thank you. I can see the line. Thank you. I'm fine. But really, I was completely ignoring the line. I was just kind of going with the flow. So on one hand, you're being reminded of your duty as part of the staff executive or the leadership team, and which you just can take as feedback and information. But I kind of took it as like, really, you don't trust me to make a good decision? I can't go out for a drink with, staff afterwards. If I had really unpacked that, I really didn't have a clue how to build, I would say probably developmentally appropriate or age appropriate relationships. Not that I was digging low or digging high. I just didn't really have any training in it because, again, the people that were just around me were the people that were just around me. And I did have individuals that I did get deep with. I think it was probably because of their efforts. And I just embraced their efforts, but I don't know if I was really seeing what was going on, the dynamic between myself. So a good example is my best man, Rui. We were tight, very tight, great friends, all through university. After we met, we were roommates for a while. We were avid cyclists together, like just built a great friendship. And, we've gone in sort of different paths. He's living overseas now, but I know I can, as I observe that, I downshifted back into my old version of friendship. So now it's kind of loose and we only sort of talk to each other. Well, we only really talk to each other mostly because he reaches out, and I can say that, like, I'm not putting the energy into maintaining that relationship. So I'm leaning on old ways. So I think now I can kind of speak to myself as an adult. There's things in my life, I've had some experiences that have reminded me that for me to sort of put my flag and declare sole proprietor of my universe is a pretty lonely place. For me not to do the work to connect means that I'm not actually growing at all. And I've had a few moments where I realize I don't have the adult tools that I need in order to, I would say this is one of the things about being an educator, is that you're surrounded with opportunity to learn about yourself. And I've asked other educators before, what has been the good stuff that you've actually received from school? Educators in general tend to, in my measure, put more in because it's needed and you don't get as much out for the actual input. It's a funny machine that way. Not arguing, not complaining, just observing. So when I stop for a moment and think about what some of the good stuff that I've got about being in school is that I've had to do professional learning on how to build positive professional relationships and how to work in groups and how to deliver something at the end of whatever the team or the committee cycle is. And I think through these really, I'm going to say almost artificial measures of accountability, I've started to accept the fact that I need to work on my people skills. I need to work on connecting in authentic ways and honest ways. And just to kind of wrap on this, I think that's also been part of my sort of spiritual growth and philosophical growth, as in really, really trying to see what's going on inside my operating system and to kind of mine inward to sort of figure out how to value myself as an individual and how to grow and how to accept individuals in that, you know, little small place that I'm constantly working to protect and open up at the same time. And this gets really, you know, complicated. So if you and I have had more than enough conversations around self-improvement and growth, I really dig the practice, despite the fact often I find stuff I'm like, yeah, dude, Clough, you just don't get it. You don't get it. You're not doing this thing right. But I will take the fact that I'm noticing that I'm not building relationships right as a step in the right direction of growth. So yeah, you got me. I've only in the last couple years started to accept what the fullness of friendship could be. And I remember I shared with you, I don't think I shared it on the pod, that moment a couple weeks back when we were out for dinner with some very close friends. And my buddy throws down just kind of like over his shoulder, okay, see you later. We love you. And I got in the car. I was saying to Kara, I mentioned Kara, like, did he say that? Did I hear that right? Like, he said he loves us, which on one hand, like, no problem. And on the other hand, I'm like, that might be a problem. Like, I'm sort of starting to measure, like, how, you know, being able to take that in relationships. And again, digging down into the sort of rules of engagement that I came to sort of easily accept as a kid, kind of growing up through the dysfunction of my 20s and 30s, realizing that I hadn't developed tools very well to grow new relationships. And now, you know, approaching 50, starting to finally open up and look at the things that are of value that I can offer new people and just really try to rock that. I wasn't expecting to go to this morning, but hey, that's the Decoded podcast.
I was just going to say, we never really know where we're going to go.
It's
and I think that speaks to our friendship a little bit, that we're just going to do what we need to do.
Not necessarily knowing that that's what's creeping up. I will say being able to speak to it does feel both a little unnerving, but also I think back to, like, I was the type of kid with my parents that I would tell them exactly what I did on the weekend, and they would sit there and just kind of feel a little shook, like, what you did what? I never really held it back from them, right? And I never had a measure of what that feeling was like because I was expressing it. So whether I partied on the weekend or I'd sort of gone on a mini road trip and I just didn't really tell them. So all these sort of things, I was always of the mind, I'm just going to tell them. I'm going to tell them what I did. They're going to find out. I'm going to tell them. And I got to sort of like this level of resilience where I was just not really taking into account the impact of my words. And I find now that's a little bit like what I'm accepting the world is doing to me. It's a funny little mind shift that the world is sort of pushing back and telling me stuff like that now, telling me the truth, telling me this is how things are. And it may feel surprising. It may feel slightly painful, but you're going to have to deal with this. This is what's going on in front of you. So I feel there's a little bit of a reciprocity there that life is pushing back now and saying you don't get to sort of not pay attention to this stuff, Clough, anymore, because it is real and the people around you are real. So take in the wisdom.
I have a question about when you tell your parents whatever you did on the weekend. Did they ever respond? They obviously didn't. I'm assuming they didn't always agree with what you did, or they.
No, see, this is the thing. At the time, they actually would say, "Stop."
Okay.
That's what it was. They were so beyond. They knew the kid that they had built. I was really independent. I had a job. I was making my own money. I was taking care of school. Like, I was precocious as hell. And I kind of lived my life to the point we've talked about the lone wolves before. Like, that was my early ninja training in becoming a lone wolf, that it's up to me to sort of make my way through the world. I'm not going to be hostile about it, but I'm not apologizing for it either. I'm just going to kind of do my thing. And hospitality, becoming a chef, fed that. It fed that wolf. Like, I became more and more independent. I was okay being kind of on my own. I was sort of okay making, the decisions that needed to be made. And because I kind of objectified individuals around me in those relationships, it was easy for me to navigate relationships, because you either in support of my agenda or you weren't. And if you weren't, well, I could sort of move on. Like, as soon as I could put you in one of those two boxes. So it's more right now where I'm pushing back, as I'm starting to hear a lot better, like that moment that my parents they were saying, like, stop, like, so we're good. We don't need to know any more of what you did on the weekend. We're good. We get it. We get you. So, I'm able now to recognize when I'm in that moment of projection and I'm actually not being generative or building a relationship. I'm just kind of like, I'm back in my ego space again, right? Kind of product marketing. I'm not actually building something.
So they built you like that. So when they would tell you, stop, we don't want to hear anymore, you're able to not internalize that as, oh, I've done something wrong because my parents are telling me to stop talking about it.
Yeah.
Am I right there?
Yeah. I didn't take it in as I was not compassionate. So if I was partying, I would just give the full, they'd walk into a relationship and I would tell, so I walk into a conversation and I would flat out just say exactly what I had consumed, exactly who I was playing with, exactly what I did on the weekend.
Interesting, because I guess the way I was built was to be the exact opposite.
My sister was the exact opposite.
Okay.
She protected everything. So
she's older, right?
No, 3 years younger.
Okay.
Yeah,
okay.
I'm older. Yeah, I know. You almost think like that would be the second child approach, to be more.
Right.
But again, I didn't have a measure of it of me being wild.
Right.
It was just me being
straight up,
open a little bit. And I'm sure there's
nothing wrong with that.
No, not really. No. You know what's funny? So a little insider here. My mom has started to listen to this podcast, eh?
I feel bad for your mom.
Well, it's funny. So every once in a while she listens to an episode and then her one of the things she does say is her feedback is like, that was very interesting, the conversation between you and Roland. And I may get some feedback from this. She may DM me on Facebook. So
well,
it's she's a little bit like she's mom from the future. Because it'll be a couple days from now, she might be listening to it, and because I posted up, I so cross post to Facebook.
Yes,
so,
I see that.
Yeah, so she'll click on it and listen. So, hey, Ma, love you, Ma.
Yeah, well, hello, Mrs. Clough. Welcome to the Decoded Podcast. All of a sudden, I feel.
I don't think I ever told you that. I don't think I ever mentioned that to you, but.
Well, here's the awesome thing. So, part of me feels like now that you've said that about your mom, that I'm standing in the front hallway of your house waiting for you to get your gear on so we can go out and party. And
Yeah.
I'm chatting with your mom.
That's exactly how it would have played out.
So she's like, Roland, how are you doing? How's
Yeah.
school? I'm like, good. She might offer me a cookie or something.
She would
And
offer food.
and
She'd
the
say,
whole
"Come on in the kitchen table. Come and sit in the kitchen."
and I'd say, no, it's okay. I'm just gonna leave my shoes on. I'm gonna wait for Chris.
Yeah.
And the whole time I'm on my best behavior
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
I'm talking to your mom. So there's
Yeah.
a way to talk to moms and dads, right? And then you come out and we get in the car and you're like, I hope my mom didn't give you a hard time. I'm like, no, it was great talking.
No, I will tell you, actually,
Okay.
that's the thing I wouldn't do.
Okay.
See, I sort of also presented my world as just, this is my world. This is my mom, right? Like I would observe her and her interactions with my friends in sort of just a neutral fashion. And if my friend, I had some friends who are like, yeah, I don't know if I want to come in. Cause my mom has she did when I was growing up, always had sort of a really, like she was down for asking just like random questions, direct questions, sometimes uncomfortable questions. Like she didn't pull punches when she was asking, kind of connecting with my friends. And so it was a take it or leave it. It was like, you're coming over to Cliff's house, then, mom, dad's going to be there. Maybe sister's going to be there. So there was an openness to it. So I may not have, if you had mentioned something, I'm like, well, I probably would have said to you, well, you came in the house.
Right. Right.
Your choice is actually, you could wait in the car, but you chose to come in. And I do think the one thing I will say is that even though every once in a while she'd ask some random questions and just probing questions, she treated a lot of my friends like she was their mom too. I mean, she's that type of person. So your parents ask you questions that are sometimes uncomfortable. When the parents of your friends ask you the same questions, I guess it's probably doubly uncomfortable. But I would often just be sitting there like waiting to see if my friends would answer.
Right.
And then we get in the car, and I did have some friends who are like, whoa, what was up with your mom? I'm like, what's up with you? You could have waited in the car. You didn't answer my mom's question. It's like, well, that was really personal. I'm like, well, she's curious about you, right? She asked this is what she does. And they would always come back in the house. That's the thing. They would come in, they would hang out. So there was something about it, the way that even though it had a little bit of a cold water effect, that they came back.
I think sometimes people want the cold water effect and you don't know what to do when it happens.
Yeah, it's true.
Right?
Absolutely.
So, no, that's cool. Well, that's neat that she's listening to it. My mom's not, and that's okay. But I think I was raised the complete opposite of you. So I was raised to comply. Mm-hmm. It's funny because now that I think about it, I was raised so that I would provide the best of every world, which we know is not possible. Mm-hmm. And that, that short circuited later on in my life.
What is, sorry, do that for me. What's the,
to be raised
I kind of nodded. Yeah, I nodded. And I'm like, I don't know if I know what that means exactly.
Be humble, yet be competitive.
Okay.
Be compassionate, yet be aggressive. Go after what you want, but don't push so hard that you aggravate people.
Gotcha.
It was always it seemed like, now that I look back on it, the message was always one of balance and to know when to turn it on, when to turn it off. But I didn't take it that way. I ended up, in my opinion, being binary. It was either on or off. There was no in between. There was no regulating. It was around my father. It was compliance. I would comply. If I didn't comply, that would cause me anxiety, which then could cause problems if I upset my father. So It was compliance. So I never told my parents what I did on certain weekend nights or whatever, because if they didn't approve, then I would have to deal with that disapproval, which would cause me harm. It would hurt me to hear my parents tell me that they didn't approve of what I did or who I was, right? Mm-hmm. So I just didn't tell them. And it's funny because it appears as though my wife and I are raising my kids now to speak their mind and to tell us things. And sometimes when it's a bit much, I'll look at my wife and say, well, this is you. Like, this is what you wanted from them. When I was a kid, I would have never told my parents what the little one just told us. And she's like, well, look at how you turned out, kind of thing. And I'm like, I get it, but you can't you can't complain that they're speaking about these things outright because this is how they've been raised. I wasn't raised like that. Um, so it's just interesting. The whole thing's just interesting. But now that I'm much older, I do think about my thinking, and for me, that's always a good first step. It's always
Mhm.
a good first step.
Oh man.
Okay, so can I share something with you that happened to me yesterday that's really, it kind of like bent me out of shape a little bit?
Mhm.
So it was after one of the recesses, maybe the first recess of the morning. Something happened in the hallway, and for a moment in time, I was living pre-COVID. I was like, I was like interacting with the students. It was funny because I was holding, I have the sanitizer and it's in a squirt bottle. So as the kids are coming in, I'm squirting their hands, right? And I'm talking to the kids, and for some reason, whatever was happening took me to a pre-COVID place
Hmm.
of teaching and learning. And so I'm squirting the kids and they're coming in. And now it's time for me to come in the room. So I turn around, I march in the room, and I want to say, okay, kids, meet me on the carpet. Let's go to the carpet and get our work started. And I think about saying it, and I look over and I see the rows of desks, right? And I see everybody kind of at their desk. And I kind of put my hands on my face and I look down, and there's no carpet. There's no room for a carpet. There's barely room to walk around the room. In fact, we don't walk around the room anymore. You come in the room and you go to your desk. If you need to leave your desk to see me, do not. I will come see you. If you need to leave the room to go to the bathroom, then there's a way. You don't just walk anywhere you want in the room. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Follow
it's
the
very,
chevrons, follow the path, follow
it's,
the arrows.
yeah, there's a process. It's all laid out. And it just, my heart sank. Seriously, I felt, here I am now. I got all the kids in the room. I'm ready to teach. They're ready to learn. And now I've taken us 2 steps back, and I've got to re-engage, and all because something in the hallway happened that caused me to forget, I guess, what the world we're living in today. And I walked in. All I wanted to say was, "Okay, meet me on the carpet." And I didn't say it. I thought it, and then I turned and I looked, and I'm like, "Oh man, there is no carpet. The room is like desks as far as you can see in rows." So then I remembered, oh, yeah, we can't do that. And then I remembered my mask was on my face, and I was a little bit bothered because it was moist under there and it was really getting on my nerves, but I got to keep the mask on. So then I walk over to the computer and I tell the kids, okay, this is what we're going to do now. This is what I need from you. And all of a sudden I went from the way I was trained to do it, and not only trained, but the effectiveness of gathering and me teaching and them learning in close proximity. Like, it's more than just a process. There is a feeling to it, right? There's a connection there.
Mhm.
There's a human touch, rather than, feels very robotic when I'm at the computer and they're sitting at their desk and I'm constantly saying, can you say that louder? I couldn't hear you, you know? So I just wanted to share that moment because that moment was so beautiful and yet so awful at the same time. The beauty I take from it is that for a moment in time, I forgot what teaching was like in elementary school today.
Hmm.
I was back in the old days. I was back in the meet me on the carpet. Everybody comes to the carpet, and I pull out the book, or I've got even the chart papers right beside me as I start teaching. It's not even like that anymore. So the beauty of it was it took me to a place where I felt really good. And the ugliness of it was that I remembered that that beauty, that place doesn't exist right now. And it will be years, I suspect, before it comes back, if at all. So I just wanted to share that it was an interesting moment. I was able to recalibrate. I mean, now that I talk to you on a Saturday morning when I'm relaxed, it felt like the recalibration was never going to happen, but it happened instantaneously. As soon as I realized that it couldn't operate the way I wanted, I went back to what I was supposed to be doing and how I was supposed to be doing it. And even like, I think that was some of the mojos come back. Like my students and I created a quick Advent challenge video that we posted on Twitter for other people to engage in, and that felt normal again, but very weird. When I go to edit the video, I used to depend on looking at the lips and being able to cut and trim my videos based on people when they started speaking. But with the mask on, I can't trim as well because I don't have any cues.
You're talking about like when you're almost doing the frame by frame, like you're doing like to sort of cut it close so that you don't have a lot of extra tape there.
Well, to make a good video.
Yeah. No, I gotcha. That is interesting that you no longer have the mouth motion as a cue.
It's gone. I just have kids looking at me like this, and I'm supposed to try to figure out
when they. Yeah, I got you.
It's interesting, but I mean, there was some normal, which was nice because even my students are like, it's so weird to watch the YouTube videos now and the YouTube videos from before, and I'm like, well, we were living in a different place before, and anyway, I wanted to share that because it was. I'm really holding on to the beautiful part of it. That feeling that I got, I hadn't felt it all year. And I finally felt it in December, that feeling of normal. That's all.
I do often. I try every day. I don't always get to it to do a morning meeting video. Just here's stuff that's going on. It's for all. The intent is it goes out as an email to the parents just to kind of give them a heads up of what's going on in learning strategies or some things that are going on in the school. And some parents, so I'm probably, let's say on average, whatever we've had, September, let's say 12 weeks. So I think I have about maybe 40 or 50 videos in there as far as just updates. And there are some people that are just now kind of checking it out, which is all good. It's just another way to build connection out with the parents. But I was talking to one parent. They said, I watched the videos and they said it was because they didn't start watching till October. So there was like a back catalog of, I call them Cluffcasts in YouTube. So the parents I shared the playlist there so they can go back and check them all out. But I did have a parent mention they had a quick reaction when they got to see my whole face because they've gotten so used to the only time that they're really, excuse me. Thanks, man. The only time that they are interacting with other teachers is if they're sort of coming back to the school, like they saw the teachers going in and out of the school, everyone's wearing masks, so everyone's all masked up. They said to have the video right there and you're not masked, the parent was saying it felt a little unnerving, like slightly taboo. Like I get to see your face. I get to see what's underneath the mask. So I've had a couple moments like that where, part of our protocol is that if you're the only one in the room, like if you're by yourself in an office, you don't have to keep your mask on. So they're, as someone approaches the office and they look in the door and they see you sitting there without your mask on. I have had a couple people say like, wow, I wasn't even quite sure what you look like. I'm like, have you seen my videos? No, I don't redirect them to videos, but I get that, there's moments of that was then, this is now. I will say for me, just on that one, this is where I was kind of reflecting in real time that I've entirely let go of my obligation to the past. I am no longer attributing what I do now in a trying to get back to or connect with how we used to do school. I'm doing my best to just completely embrace the tools that I got and the relationships that I have and the context that I'm teaching out of. I've packed that up and put it on the back shelf, everything that was school before March 13th. And I only kind of realized that as you were telling the story, and I didn't really have any more of an emotional response to it. I was just taking it in as information. And I thought to myself, you know what? I'm no longer in mourning or in that grief period about how we used to do school. I think that I've mentally moved on. And I'm not trying to make that as a cold kind of thing. Like I do have memories. It's like kind of flipping through the scrapbook from the past, but I don't feel bound to it. I don't feel obligated to it. And I don't feel compelled to sort of speak fondly of it either. I think I've just mentally shifted and moved on.
I guess I haven't.
And that's everyone's process, right? Everyone's in a different space with that. And I wouldn't say that it was as intentional as I'm making it sound right now. This is just me observing my thoughts and my feelings that I do not have an automatic emotional response to when people talk about pre-COVID education. I have to be honest, even pre-COVID life, I don't have an emotional response to it.
Right on.
Maybe.
Well, yeah, maybe. I mean, you got to do what's working for you.
Mm-hmm.
Before we shut down today,
Mm-hmm.
our good friend Tim jumped in a couple of minutes ago to say good morning. He's, according to what I can see on the screen, there are no viewers right now, so he won't hear this unless he watches later. But good morning, Tim. Thanks for jumping in to check us out. It's always good to hear from the Teachers on Fire podcast.
Yep, it's true.
What did you draw today, Christopher?
Oh,
Aikido. And okay, we're going to have to talk further about the three shapes, because you posted that on Twitter too, and I have no idea. And I don't want to go there right now, but
for another time.
Oh, Ramona, she just stepped in. And Ramona says she still misses her flexible seating. The kids she still has from last year will ask for our couches.
Mm-hmm.
That hurts, Ramona.
Mm-hmm.
That hurts. I love how Ramona just slides in at the end. I love it.
Dropping in. I get it. I get it, but I'm really, and I'm not sure why I'm processing this way, but I'm just kind of walking away from my relationship with that past. Not the learning, not the understanding, not the wisdom, but I'm looking to kind of sever my relationship there so that I can build one with where we're going next. And I think that that's, for me, a healthy way for me to build a relationship with where school's going for the remainder of my time in education. So I understand the couches. I understand the carpet. I understand, DRA and guided reading when you can get up close and have those moments. I get all of it. I think I've just chosen to put those scrapbooks up on the shelf and kind of just walk away from it.
Right on. Maybe. Well, thanks again for your time, Clough.
Yeah, dude. You too. Always good to meet up on Saturdays. Take care.
Yeah. Peace. Have a good one.